Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Adrian, and today I wanted to talk about why it's so important for some autistic adults to receive an autism diagnosis after going their entire life so far without knowing they're autistic. Because I've noticed many people have this mentality that there couldn't possibly be any harm in not knowing, or that once you do realize you're autistic after doing a lot of research and analyzing your entire life, that should be enough for you. And yeah, that's enough for some people, but for others, the certainty and validation is very important. And so, what's the harm of not knowing? Why is it such a big deal? If you made it this far in life, what's even the point? You seem perfectly fine. Actually, most of us were not fine. I mean, do you think it's fine to grow up hating yourself because you feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with you, and no matter what you do, you can't seem to fix yourself? Do you think it's fine to have everyone around you ignore and completely invalidate your very real needs just because they don't understand you have a neurological difference, and that you are actually more negatively affected by your environment, and that you do genuinely struggle with things that most people handle without an issue? It does not feel good to suppress yourself because you've come to the conclusion that, well, clearly you're the problem since no one seems to have trouble with the things that you do. Autistic people get all sorts of incorrect and painful labels, and when you don't know you're autistic, you attribute everything to the fact that you're just some kind of major failure, and you internalize everything. You believe it when people tell you that you're too dramatic, too sensitive, too weird, too awkward, too cringe, too slow, too shy, too loud, too rude, too negative, too disruptive, too much of a freak, too much this, too much that, too much whatever. And every little thing that people seem to have a problem with just like burns in your brain, and you decide that your entire personality must be wrong, that you must be flawed at your very core. And that is painful. And so for those of us who are able to, we basically wipe out our entire personality and try to be like everyone else as much as we can anyway. And the hard truth is that not even that works perfectly. There are cracks in the mask that people seem to still see through. And the very kind and open kind of people will give you a chance, but most people will automatically decide that something is off about you, and they don't even bother trying to get to know you. They ignore you, or they make fun of you and bully you. But then what about when the mask is successful? What if you camouflage very well? Like, people look at that and they're like, surely you're fine. You've done fine. Like, you seem so normal, you fit in, like you clearly are fine. There's always a cost, a massive cost. Not only is camouflaging extremely depleting, it also leads you to adopt the belief that no one likes the real you, and no one ever could. Of course, it's not true. There are wonderful people in the world who will accept you exactly as you are. However, most people don't have an adequate understanding of autism, or really any sort of significant difference in human beings. And people tend to not like or be open to what they don't understand. And so, unfortunately, it becomes all too easy for autistic people to come to the conclusion that people do not like them because they've had too many encounters where that appears to be the case. And let me tell you, it's a whole other kind of hell when you get to the point where you form a close relationship with someone, like a friendship or otherwise, and realize that there are all these areas where you're still holding back who you are. Because the thing about camouflaging is, it's not that it's a lie, though, I mean, sometimes autistic people do lie about who they are, they lie about certain things, but usually it's still some version of you. Because, people have layers, just like Shrek. I mean, I guess I'll speak for myself, but I know several other high-masking autistic people have done this as well. It's like you're you, but you just emphasize certain qualities that seem more acceptable, and then you suppress other qualities that seem unacceptable to most. And it feels like a lot of holding back. And then in expressing your true self, it's like you have to do it in a way that's more acceptable. You learn the right sort of language to use to describe things so that people can understand. Like, maybe you minimize certain things, like certain experience of yours, by relating it to something that you know more people understand, and express things that really bother you as just like little annoyances instead of like what's really happening in your body and in your mind. Because it's like you can't exactly explain to someone that like some obscure noise caused you to have a full meltdown, for example. Like, and then some things you just never express at all. So it's like you're not lying about anything, but you're keeping a lot of things to yourself. And, you know, looking back on my life, I realized that a lot of people in my life would feel like I wasn't very open. And it would be surprising to me, because the people that I would get close to, it's like, I'm telling you more than I've ever told anyone in my entire life, right? So I'm like, and you know, and I was definitely like trauma dumping on people sometimes. So I'm like, what do you mean I'm not very open? Like, I just told you all kinds of stuff. Like, and I would never tell other people that. And so I didn't really get it, but they were right, because even though there were certain people that I did tell a lot more to, there was still always so much of myself, like so much of my authentic self, that I was still holding back. And it's like they could feel that I was restricting myself. And again, like I said, the process of masking is exhausting. It's like you're always on edge. You can't ever relax. Like, I remember being in high school, and it seemed like every time I would slip up, meaning like not paying attention to my face or what I was doing or something, it seemed like someone would always make some kind of comment, and it would like jolt me right back into being super self-conscious and going back to making sure that I was seeming engaged in what was happening and trying to make sure I seemed happy and interested. And then there were also times where it appeared that I was overcompensating, and then that would get comments too, like, why are you laughing so much, or something like that. And it's very stressful and confusing, because it's like you go from everyone telling you that you act too serious or take everything too seriously, to people telling you that you're smiling and laughing too much. Or it could be anything like that, where it's like you've been not enough of this, and then suddenly you're too much of this. And so it's like you're always trying to perform this like extreme balancing act. And to do it right, you're using up all of your energy, because you're having to pay attention to so many tiny details all at once. And, you know, it doesn't even end outside of those social situations, because now you have to sit there and analyze everything that happened to figure out how you can do it better next time. And it's all because you want to avoid pain in social situations, because I mean, who wants to go through that? Who wants to feel like an outcast all the time? Like, you know, we all just want to feel like we belong sometimes, because it's like if you don't perfectly perform, you get othered. Everyone around you makes you feel like an alien, like you don't belong. And even masking, you still can't ever manage to feel like you belong anywhere. I mean, for me, it's always been a lot easier to interact one-on-one. So yeah, I've managed to obtain a few friends here and there, usually just like one at a time. But every group situation I've ever been in has been so stressful. Like, I always leave a group setting feeling awful. I mean, maybe not always feeling like super terrible, but it was never great. And the thing is, I would be so optimistic going into a lot of these things. Like, you know, like, oh, like, this is the time that I'm gonna, like, make friends, and this is the time, like, I'm gonna fit in, like, and I never felt that way afterwards. Never. It was so hard trying to include myself within the group. I could never figure out how to join a conversation. I'd always be left feeling like I did something wrong. Because it's like, it always felt like I could notice a difference in response. Because it's like, anytime that, like, for a lot of it, it's like, I just kind of sit there. Like, I'm just kind of there in a group, just like watching everything happening. But, you know, I always want to try to, like, join in. And so it's like, when I did manage to speak up, I just felt like I would do something wrong. It's like, the response to me always seemed different than the response to everyone else in the group. Like, it's like everyone had some kind of instruction manual on how to do this that I never got, you know? And then there's just everything else about life. It's so overwhelming. It feels like you can never keep up with anything, and like, everything is always too much, and you can never understand why you feel like you're completely unraveling and everyone else seems to be put together. You know, many of us struggled with mental illness. Many of us became very anxious, very depressed. You know, trigger warning. Many even worse. Things like self-harm, thoughts of no longer wanting to be alive, attempting to get out of this life, or always just wishing that you could just disappear, developing more unhealthy coping mechanisms, struggling with addiction. And like, it's largely due to never receiving any sort of validation from anyone. Other people looking at your life and thinking that you have no reason to be feeling as terrible as you do, because no one understands why certain things are bothering you so much. And usually people don't even see the majority of what you're struggling with, because you're doing everything you possibly can to hide it, because you know that other people don't understand and will minimize your pain, because everyone else is doing just fine, so you should be just fine too, according to them. So no, undiagnosed autistic people were not fine. And it does massively change how you feel about yourself once you know that it's not because you're just not trying hard enough, it's because you're autistic. It makes you look at your whole life through an entirely different lens. You realize you just experience the world differently, and it's no wonder you have different responses to your environment and the things that you go through than most other people would. You realize there's no reason to go on hating yourself, trying to force yourself to be something you can't be, because there was never anything wrong with you. Just because you're not neurotypical doesn't mean that you're doing life wrong. It's not wrong, and you're not the problem. The only problem was that other people tried to make you feel like you needed to be different when you never needed to be. It's not wrong that you struggle with certain things. It's not wrong that you react more strongly, that things have a stronger, more intense impact on you. It's not wrong. And you never deserve to suffer for your differences. And you always should have been allowed to do things different. And you always deserve to have the support and accommodations that you needed. And you never should have been made to feel weak or less than in any way for needing more support than other people. You never should have suffered as much as you did trying to do it all alone. And if you see one area of an autistic person's life and think they don't need a label because they seem to have everything figured out, just know you have no idea what went into that. And know that you don't know what the rest of their life looks like. You know, we can only maintain so much. So if we reach neurotypical standards for a few areas in our life, there's probably other areas of our life where we're like barely scraping by. Or maybe some of us have actually gotten to the point where we've got enough support in our lives. People who are helping us in the areas where we have difficulty. But you should always know that when it comes to any person at all, really, that you don't know everything about them. You can't possibly see everything that goes on in a person's world, and you certainly can't see what's going on in their internal world. High-masking autistic people especially are very good at suppressing things because it became like this crucial survival skill for us. So there's been a lot of times where we seem fine on the outside, all while we feel like we're burning alive on the inside. So anyway, that's why it's so important to know. It can really make you feel absolutely insane going your whole life always wondering why, like always wondering what is wrong with you and never having an explanation. So when you learn what autism is, what it really is on a deep level, and realize that it explains your entire life, it is a huge revelation. It shines a light on your entire existence. Like, I don't think people realize how it permeates every area of your life. It explains so much. And it's a lot to go through. A whole roller coaster of emotions when you find out you're autistic. And it's not all great, but ultimately it can make your life so much better because you have so much more awareness about yourself and how you actually start supporting yourself and acting in your own best interest and learn how to be more yourself. I think people really underestimate the pain of being inauthentic or feeling like you have to hide from everyone, even yourself. It is life-changing and life-saving. Like, the world is so sick. Trying to make everyone be one thing and just having no compassion whatsoever, just thinking they can tell people they're not who they say they are, it honestly makes me sick. Just because you can't relate doesn't mean it's not real. People aren't just being diagnosed with autism for no reason. Maybe if you were actually willing to listen and understand, you would realize that. But not too much on that. In fact, I'd like to send those people some extra love. I hope they wake up soon. I have compassion for them. I know the world is harsh, and they've put up this strong armor. But, you know, enough love can dissolve it. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. It truly means a lot. And I would so greatly appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Feel free to comment your thoughts down below. And thank you again. I'll see you in the next video.